In this video, I'm going to explain a few things that you should never do when keeping a bird of prey. And these aren't things out of my imagination, these are all things I've witnessed during my career as a full-time display falconer. The first relates to the techniques we use when we are training birds of prey to fly back to the glove. And this next method I'll explain can work with any type of owl that's tame, any type of hawk, falcon, eagle, etc. What we should be doing is building up trust with that bird first, offering lots of food, spending time with it so it gets comfortable with that person, and then bringing the weight down slowly so it's a bit keener and is more likely then to hop to the glove for food. What you must never do is what I witnessed once when a gentleman asked me to come round to get some advice about an eagle owl he'd bought. He had it in a lovely big aviary, but it was clear this owl was not tame. And if you want a tame owl, you really need to hand rear it. But what this gentleman was doing was offering the bird food on his glove every day, 3 or 4 times a day. And he said, I am not going to feed this bird any food until it's flown to my glove. You can see the logic there, sure. But I had to say to him, stop what you're doing immediately, give that bird some food, because that owl would probably prefer to die of dehydration or starvation than fly to your glove. The answer to that is, if it's not a tame owl, chances are you're never going to get it manned up enough to fly back to the glove anyway, so if anything, it was the bird itself that was the issue in that scenario. The next thing is when we're flying our birds free, we should be removing equipment or furniture, as it's known the bird is wearing, that it shouldn't be flying with. I've mentioned in past videos that Muse jesses should not be used when flying because they could more likely get caught on something and the bird could get stuck in a tree, for example. You could even fly with just anklets on, but what you must never do is be lazy and fly with a swivel on, because this will create a large, almost triangular shape that could very easily be stuck on a tree branch or something else, and the bird would get stuck. Additionally, when we're flying our birds of prey, it is important to weigh the bird just before flying it to make sure it's at the right flying weight. And it's also a very good idea to look at the bird's temperament. How is it behaving? Because if you know your bird well, this is another good indicator to how keen the bird's going to be. Now, these are the 2 best parameters to check whether your bird is likely to be at the right flying weight and respond as you wish. You could even set your bird on a perch, attach a line to it, which we call a créance, and if it flies to you straight away for a little piece of chicken or something, then you're pretty sure it's going to be okay. Release it then fully and let it fly free. Now, when we get rescue birds in, one of the things I do straight away is I feel the keel. Now, this is the sharp bone on the chest. It's got all the vital organs hidden behind it. It's like the thickest bone on the bird. And it should be a sort of point, but not too sharp. The sharper it is, the more underweight the bird is, and the thicker it is, the healthier the weight of the bird. So with a rescue tawny owl or kestrel, if the keel feels incredibly sharp, I assume that bird hasn't eaten in a while and we need to get some fluids into it and some energy into it immediately. If that bird, however, has quite a thick keel, then we don't have to rush into feeding it and we can look into getting it settled into some kind of pen for rehabilitation or whatever. Now, I bring this up because I have heard some falconers say they don't bother weighing their birds, they don't even really look at the way it's behaving, they go on feeling the keel. Now, this is a very inaccurate way of knowing how hungry your bird's going to be, and really, if you're always going for something sharp, it's potentially underweight. So never ever use feeling the keel as an indication of how keen the bird's going to be. Always on the weight of the bird and the way it looks, its behaviour, its temperament, when you understand its normal behaviour. When it comes to housing your bird of prey, you need to use something that is appropriate as an enclosure. For a little while, a few years ago, I had a go at some animal courier work. I did a little bit back in 2015, and I also did a little bit during the lockdown as a way to help fund the feeding of my animals and so on. And I saw lots of amazing aviary systems, both in the back gardens of people's houses and in bird of prey centres. and I also saw a few dubious things as well. I think the worst one was where someone had used a brick shed, and that's the best way to describe it, which I think was an old coal house in the back garden, as an enclosure for a falcon that was free lofted. No double door, very little light getting in, not much airflow, and just not really a very suitable enclosure. So for example, if you have a garden shed in your backyard with the lawnmower in it and a few gardening tools and maybe a deck chair for when it's a nice warm day, and you're thinking of converting it into an enclosure for a bird of prey, it is possible to do if you adapt it correctly. But don't just empty the shed, stick a perch in and throw the bird in there. That would not be appropriate to do. This video could probably be a lot longer. I've seen all kinds of wild and wonderful things on my journey around as a falconer. Most things, I'm pleased to say though, have been professional. If you've got any questions, please let me know below. And for you falconers who've been around the block a few times, please comment with your stories of crazy things you've seen in the world of falconry as well. I'd love to read that.